Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Ignacio, can you hear me? Well, I think, yeah, everything should be okay. Hello, everyone. So we are already live streaming. Let me introduce you a bit about the event. Today, we are covering Streamlit web applications with EIA API, which is US energy data. In the link of the event, you can see some references to links. In the past week, we had another session where we cover in detail how to work with the Streamlit, with the US Energy API. To give you a bit of context, here we have in YouTube our sessions recorded in case you want to take a look at them. Number 2 is the one we had last week, and today's session will be posted after the event has finished. Just checking with the people in the Zoom. Ignacio and Viva, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Nice. Thank you. Well, tutorials that we have published recently and that will be helpful to cover today's development code and the doubts that you may have. The how to work with US energy data. Here you have a step-by-step tutorial with the questions based on what you will learn if you read this tutorial, getting the API key, and once you have the URL from the EIA API, you will get the different data catalogs. For example, we focused last day on electricity to get the generation of energy by each technology, like solar energy, nuclear energy, wind energy, etc. Here you have it step by step, how to access those data points. Because in the energy sector, you have many types of information. Here you can see electric power operations. Also, you have state electricity profiles, operating generator capacity, which is not the same than the generation that actually generates the electricity. And then at the end, I show you how to query the hourly information of this data using the API with these rules. Also, it has some limitations because we need to update the queries, make them again, each 5,000 rows, because that's the limit from the API. And here we have the value of the hourly energy, the daily energy generation that later we can visualize or export to an Excel. From the last live streaming, you asked me to publish some tutorials step by step. And here we have 2 of them. Having the energy generation, we can configure on each hour, which is the amount of electricity that each technology generated. And here you have a heat map where you can see, for example, that solar energy during the hours of the nights and well in the morning doesn't generate barely electricity, but then during the afternoon hours, they do generate a lot of electricity because the sun is up and we can take advantage from the solar photovoltaic plants. And the same analysis would happen with any of these other technologies, depending if they are on the climate, or they can be turned off and on whenever you want, such as, for example, natural gas or coal, hydro power as well. And again, you have here the tutorial on how to develop this analysis step by step. First, you load this data set that you can download if you follow the steps from this tutorial, which is the one we saw before. And then once you have these data sets, you start processing step by step. Here you apply a group by the hour and the source to calculate the total generation with the sum. But instead of having it in this format, it's better to always put it in a pivot table where you have many columns representing different categories of one variable, and by the rows the same. But don't leave it like that. Try to guide the reader with colors and more information by using this style. If you go to this other tutorial, which is the last one that we published, you have another practical case where you have a data set with the billionaires in which industry they belong and the countries. So from this raw data set that you can download from this website in Kaggle, which is a common one to practice with data, you load it in Python. These are the questions that you will answer and the methodology. You apply a pivot table the same way we did before. And now you make a background style gradient, but don't leave it like that because you have here too many decimals. It's always better to make it informative and right to the point. So here we divide by 1,000. We fill some missing data. We make a format to have no decimals, make the separators of the thousands with a comma. And finally, the background gradient, as we are talking about money, and the dollar banknote is green, so we can use it as green. And the analysis you can take from this table are much more meaningful than the ones that you could have taken from this other. That's why it's always better to visualize the information with a heat matrix. For example, one of the most striking differences are in the manufacturing, where billionaires from China have more wealth compared to those in the USA. But compared to the other technologies, the other industries, the USA has more billionaires, more wealth. And then in India, curiously, we have here the diversified industry. Also in technology, we have a competition, well, not really, between USA and China, and some other countries that may are India as well, with 58 billions. And that's how you would analyze these data sets with a heat matrix. Now, do you have any doubts, guys, Ignacio or Viva, from these processes?
No, I'm good.
Okay, everything clear. Is there anything that you would like to know from these problems or references whatsoever? Okay, so we shall get started with the Streamlit applications. Viva, am I pronouncing your name well?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, so what do you know about Streamlit?
Not sure, actually.
Have you worked with it before?
I've heard about it, but that's about it.
Okay.
I just know that it's used to make.
So for example, we can go to the gallery, and here you can see applications that the community have published based on some examples from people. For example, if I get into here, normally it takes a bit to load. There we are. So at the end of the day, there are people who can write the code and are okay with changing the parameters with the code in a notebook or a script. But then you may have colleagues who are not that technical at writing codes, but you would like them to play around with the analysis that you have performed. In this case, you would create a Streamlit dashboard where you can, for example, put some interaction buttons, and then here you will see how this website is reacting. You can put buttons to download the data so that they can make more explorations in the Excel, also some accordions. And at the end of the day, working with this application may seem like it's too much because there is a lot of information here, but creating these buttons only takes one line of code in Python at the end of the day. And then I will show you how to. So in our case, we will work with energy data. Give me 1 second that I open the files. We create a folder for the project, which is a common approach. And then here, the main file to write a Streamlit application, Viva. Which one do you think is it? Is it a notebook or is it a Python script? Do you know what is the difference between them?
A notebook would execute commands one after the other.
Yeah. For example, the notebook is in the format YPNV.
Yeah, IPYNV.
And then the script exactly is .py. Now, to create a Streamlit application, we would need to work with the Streamlit library inside a script, okay? It's the common approach. Even though there are some widgets to work in a notebook with Streamlit, to create a web application, we need to use the script .py. So if I, for example, put here the library, Streamlit as st, and then now I can write the typical thing of hello world, or for example, hello people, to change it. How can we not deploy, but to launch this application in a URL that we can access to? The first step is to go on the terminal. We focus here. And then we need to be on the same folder than the script in the terminal. So we go to the secondary button, open in integrated terminal. And now the command to execute would be streamlit run and the name of the script, which is script.py. Now, if I execute at the beginning, it says that streamlit is not recognized as an internal or external command because I don't have the library installed in this Python that I am using. So first, I go to an environment that I have with Python. I'm using Mamba, but also some people have used Conda, which are the same. And here, if we go to Python, now we can execute Python commands. So if I don't have the Streamlit library when I execute it, Streamlit run script.py, what shall I do? Viva?
You can use pip install.
That's it. Pip install and the name of the library, which would be Streamlit. Before that, I'm going to another environment where I am doing all of the work. There we go. So I do pip install Streamlit. I execute, and now the terminal is going to an online repository to download the files and packages from this library so that we can execute it on our computer. Meanwhile, okay, now that we have it executed, how can we run the command? Viva?
Streamlit run script.
That's it. And if you would like to know all of the commands from Streamlit, what would you do?
In the last session, you taught us that we could use the.
When we are in the terminal, we always
Okay,
put
that's.
the slash, the minus, and the H from help.
Okay.
And then this works with any commands that you have in the terminal, usually. And sometimes they will tell you if they don't have the minus, that you can do it with the double. So let's check it out. There we go. So here we have some commands from the Streamlit library to run some examples with the hello. For example, here, if we do Streamlit hello, and then we execute, here they have opened, allow. Here they have opened this example with their documentation. They have animation demo where we can change this parameter and the application will change, and these many others. But if we are to start from scratch, how shall we do this? So we close this with Control-C. It's taking a bit of time. I can open a new one. And now we can do to launch our script, Streamlit run script.py. We execute. Sorry, I need to activate the terminal. And now I do Streamlit run scripts.py. And here we have the websites. Now, to make it more interesting, we should use it with a data set. So let's do it. Do you know some public data sets? Viva. For you to practice. Do you normally use some libraries like Plotly or Seaborn?
No, I'm still learning.
Okay, so if you are learning and you don't know which tables you could use to practice, the Python libraries contain some examples. For example, here, if I import Plotly, that I need to probably. There we go. As PX. You, Ignacio, have worked with this library, Plotly?
Yes, a little bit.
Have you worked with their data sets?
No.
So,
with my own dataset.
Okay, so normally if you want to work with some examples that you want to see from Plotly library and website, they have the data that if you execute, it's a module, and inside you can load all of these data sets. So for example, if we use Gapminder, which is a cool one because it has information from countries, we can work better with them. So at the beginning, I'm going to use this data set to make it more clear instead of focusing that much on the energy. And then at the end of the session, we substitute all that what we have done with an energy data set. So here I would save this into a data set, df. And now if I want to put all of this into a Streamlit, how would you do it? Viva?
Not sure.
Do you think there are any differences between writing in the notebook or the script what is the Python code? In this case, it isn't. So we can copy everything. We place it here. We save it. And then they have said the source file has changed. Would you like to rerun it? Let's click on always rerun. And then here we have the data set. Now, one thing that I would like you to know is that if you try to develop all of the visualizations in the same script, the .py, it's going to be pretty difficult because you wouldn't see all of this in the website. You need to wait, etc. I would advise first to prototype the sketch in the notebook and then pass the elements into the Streamlit script. So one of the most common examples that we can do here is filtering the data and making a plot. So I'm going to filter the data for the year to be the last one, which is 2007. And then I can place it here. And there I have all of the countries in the year 2007. Save this in the table. So df year, for example. And now, if we want to apply a visualization, Viva, what would you do? I'll give you a hint. You need to use the Plotly library. You can dictate to me if you know. Do you?
Using the Plotly library, we should make a
That's it.
visualization.
So if we put px and the dot, you see that here the VS Code is giving us suggestions, right?
The options, yes.
That's it. So if we would like to do a plot, for example, to, I don't know, make a ranking of the life expectancy, for example, what would you do? We can do different types of plots, but as we are comparing with only one variable, we will use a bar plot. Then we look for the bar function, and what would you use later? You see that if you put the mouse over the function, you get the help, right? What is the first parameter?
The data frame.
That's it, which is our data frame. The df year.
Yes.
So we place it here. And now in the x-axis, they will ask for df year. In the x-axis, they will ask for one variable. In our case, can be the country. And in the, one second, in the y-axis, as we said, we're going to compare the population, pop. Sorry, the life expectancy. So life exp. We execute. We are getting an error here, so we can check it out. Do you know how to solve this error, Ignacio?
No, but I think you should install another library.
That's it. This one. Normally, some libraries depend on others, so they will normally throw you an error wherever it is. So we can take this library. We open a new terminal that we can do in this plus button, and then in the same environment that you can see here, work, I activate it, and then I run the command pip install env format and see if they execute it. With the version 5.9, it should be greater than this one. So we can execute this again. And we need to be very careful because sometimes it doesn't work. That's because we need to reload the VS codes or restart the application. So let's reload. And then here, execute from the beginning. There we go. Now we don't have the error. So what else would I do here? I would sort the values to see which one are the countries with a higher life expectancy. How would we sort the values? Viva?
I'm not sure. I guess there's a ascending descending function.
That's it. So whenever
Yeah.
you're working with Python, how do you access the list of the functions that you have available?
After the dot.
That's it. And then here, what is the action that you want to perform? What is the verb?
Sort.
Okay, so we can type sort, and there you have the options.
Values.
So this is also very important that you apply this learning approach to force yourself on deducing the name of the function that you will use, because
Okay.
it makes it more likely that in the future you will remember, and then the amount of energy that you spend on getting to the code, you can dedicate it to being creative, you know? So if you apply this, you're going to be more comfortable at working with the code and solving problems with programming. So sort values or sort index?
Sort values.
Okay, because the index is the most left columns. Sort values and then the name of the column, which is life expectancy. Now we save it back with the in place true. We execute. If we get this that a value is trying to be set on a copy, the solution is to, at the moment we have filtered the data that we passed from having the complete data set with all of the years to this one with the year 2007 to make a copy. And then we solve this warning that they throw us. We execute again, and there we can see the ranking of countries. What else could we do here to make a better visualization? We can take the most common value, the countries with the highest life expectancy. Ignacio, how would you do that?
Count values or something like that.
It could be, but in this case, you already have the data sorted, right?
Yeah.
So how can you take the last 20 rows, for example? You probably have used the command
Tail, not tail.
That's it, tail. So we can put the 20, and there we have the countries, the 20 countries with the highest life expectancy. Now we can save it back. We can use here df top, for example, and this is the plot that we are going to use now. And there we go. There are not too much differences. So let's use another variable like the GDP per cap. Now we have some differences. To apply these changes and see it in order, we also need to sort the values here by the GDP per cap. You see that we are having too many options between which column do we place on the plot, right? This is a good case that you could refactor the option into a variable. So you can put here the column, you put the GDP per cap, and then here, to avoid writing twice, you apply column, and then here again, the column. So you execute everything again, and now you only need to write to change this variable once, and the changes will be applied to the rest of the code. What else can we do to place this chart into the Streamlit application? So we can copy everything from the loading the data sets that we have here. So let's do that. And here we go. Now, if I save this, it's running, and I don't yet see the plots. If you would like to see the plots, Viva, what would you think? Let's do some brainstorming.
We can see which function.
That's it.
Needs
It's
to
always
be
the
called.
same. Programming is nothing more than applying a function to an object to transform it into another.
Okay.
Now, where shall we look for the function that plots the figure in Plotly? Sorry, in Streamlit. The function,
st dot.
okay, st dot, and then
Plot.
here, let's look for plots. I have the copilot, that's why it's suggesting, which I don't like.
Okay.
Let me see if I can disable it for a bit. Disable. Okay. Now, also another thing, you see that if I write here the code, I don't get the suggestions, right?
Yeah.
That's because here the code, you see that it says could not be resolved. That's because if we are working in a script, we need to specify the same environment that we are working from the notebook. So in the script, we can go to the interpreter. Let's wait a bit. The computer, when I am streaming, is not that powerful. Now it got stuck. Okay, let's give it a try. So we look for interpreter, and there you see Python, select the interpreter. We need, by default, is this one, but we would like to use the work one. And now we wait a bit. Maybe we need to reload this. Reload. Let's go with the libraries app. Okay, there we go. So what shall we look here for? If you want to plot the figure from Plotly into the Streamlit application, we go to the Streamlit library, the dots, and now which one do you think is the name of the function?
We were looking for plot.
Okay, plots. Which one?
Okay. Plotly
Chart.
chart. Yeah.
Because the chart comes from the Plotly library. Now,
Okay.
what shall we do? You tell me. I need to place the figure that this function produces into this other function. To do so, I need to put some reference here to the figure, right?
Okay.
Now, how can I reference all of these codes to the figure? Just creating the variable.
Yeah.
I save it, and voila, there we go. Good?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's go with the cool stuff here. How can I select the column from this data set that I want to visualize? Because here I'm visualizing only the GDP per cap, right? If I would like to visualize any of the columns that I have and make the option in the Streamlit application, how would I do it to select the rest of these columns? First, I need to get a list of all of the columns available. And that is, I access the columns, and then I will take only the numerical columns. So to do this, I need to access the properties from the data frame, and there is a function called select D types, the data types from the columns. And I will tell that I want to exclude the objects, and that I have only the numerical ones. So I would also drop the year, because the year I am using it in the another property, drop columns year, and then I save this back into the, well, not save it back yet, but access the columns property, and this I pass it into a list to make it work. This is how you would write a code that is maintainable, because if you add more numerical columns based on calculations of ratios whatsoever, the code will still work the same way, because the new columns will be numbers. So now I save this into a variable that I will call options column. I save it, and how can I pass this to the properties of the Streamlit application? So I take this code, I go to the scripts and paste it at the beginning. Yeah, we can do it here. Well, actually, we need to do it before sorting the values. So let's do it here. So we also need to do it in the df. And finally, yeah, there we go. So now you see that I have these options in the Streamlit application because I have made them printed through this variable. But what would you want here, Viva, to make a button that you can select the column and change the plot? How would you do it? Viva? It's the same
We could
thing,
make another list with and tag the indexes, maybe.
but here first we are looking to place a button with the different columns. So which is the thinking process you need to apply? It's the same one you applied before when you wanted to visualize the data. Where do you want to place the button? In the Streamlit application. So
yes.
Where do you look for the function?
st dot.
That's it. St dots. And now?
Button.
Awesome. There you go. You see?
Okay. Yeah.
If you apply this reasoning, again, you're going to remember things for the long run. You will focus on being creative, because I see that me at the beginning, when I was learning, I fall too many times back on copy paste, repetition, memorizing. And that ultimately drained my energy because I couldn't learn everything, you know, like it doesn't take up in your head. But if you apply this process of consciously reason about where do I look for the function, and then if you pay attention, you don't even need to remember what is inside the function. The code is already telling you here. So learn how to use these tools, and then you will not need to learn all of these concepts and memorize them. What is the following thing that they are asking? Label, right?
Yes.
So that is the name that I will put to the button. So I can say column, save it. And you see that I have it here, right? I can click, but it's not doing anything. Now the question is, do you want a button or do you want to select some options like a drop down?
A drop down.
So let's look for a function. It is drop down. It isn't. Let's look for select box. There we go. We can save it. It's missing the options. If we go to the parameters, we can see options here. So we paste it. And then we put options column. We save it back. And now here I have the button that I can select some new column, but still the chart is changing, Ignacio. If I select
No.
a different column,
No.
what would you do to make it change?
Reference the variable, no, of
Okay.
the select box
So I
into
can put
the
here the
data
column.
frame.
I would use the column because it's the same variable that I have used in this other code. You see?
Okay.
Now I can remove this one. I can execute again. And now if I select the population, the GDP per cap, so on, so on. But still, do you think this is a proper application, Ignacio? Like normally, where do you have the options in an application? Right here or at the left sides?
Yes, as a sidebar, not probably at the left
That's it.
side.
Sidebar is the keyword we are looking for here. How would I put this button, this drop down into the sidebar?
Look for a property or I don't know, an object, no, that is called
That's
sidebar
it.
or
Or
something similar.
normally think of that, of this. Whenever you want to do something in programming, you need a function. So where do you look for the function? Normally you have two options. You look inside the library or inside an object, because the sidebar, the button, the figures are all part of the Streamlit application. You would look inside the Streamlit library. So stdots, and what shall we put here? Ignacio?
Sidebar
Okay.
or
There you have it, sidebar. Now, the way that the Streamlit library works is that in the sidebar, if you now look for another property like the select box we were looking for, you will see the property if you place it here in the middle, sidebar, in the application.
okay.
Good. Now, based on the codes, which other options, Viva, would you add?
You mean onto the sidebar?
In the figure. For example, in the code, we selected a part of the data frame, right? Remember that in the data frame, we have this
Oh, yes,
full
yeah.
data set.
Yes.
You were saying, sorry?
Yes. Go ahead, please.
You go. I rather prefer you to reason and then I can guide you through it.
No, I didn't get your question. Are you
Okay.
asking what?
So I want to add a new button in the sidebar. And the question is there in this code any other type of option to select a part of the dataset? Because here we have selected a column of the dataset, but is there any other filter we have applied? If you see here, the year, right?
The year 2000, yes. Oh, okay.
So how would you put a year column in the sidebar?
Same as before, we would create a list for all the
Okay,
years.
so let's do it here. That is more comfortable. How can I write a list of all of the years?
Mm,
Now, I want to get inside your head for a second. When I am
okay.
asking you these questions, what is your first thinking, your first thought?
There's
Memorizing?
a huge range of all the years.
Okay, but anytime you want to do something with the code, it's already there. And it's you going through the layers of the object or the library. For example, where do you have the year? You want to make a list of all of the years, right?
Yes.
You have the years in this part of the data frame, which you have called df. Now,
Okay.
the same way you had accessed all of the functions through the dot inside the library, you would apply the same here. What do you want to access? All of the columns or only one column?
Only one column.
How would you do it?
Uh,
How did you access the function from the library?
dot year.
So if you put the dots and then the year, there we go. Now, how many years do we have here? 1,700.
700, yeah.
Do I want all of them? Or I
No.
only want the unique years?
The unique years.
How can I ask Python to give me the unique years?
I'm guessing group by.
Okay, that's the thing that sometimes sorry for putting you in this in the light for something,
No
but
problem, no problem.
you will learn a lot. Sometimes we think that it's much more complicated than it actually is. And you
Okay.
see the Python code, the functions, the libraries are open source, which means that anyone could submit a request to add a functionality. Now, if I do a group by, etc., it's going to be more than 2 lines, 2 functions. Do you
Okay.
think that the people from the pandas library, because this is where this object comes from, haven't detected this and put a function to get the unique elements of their object?
Oh, okay. They definitely would have. So maybe
So how would you look for it?
dot
Dot?
unique or something.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
You see, like, that's what I mean, that applying this thinking process at the end, you reach to anywhere you want.
Okay.
Now you place the parentheses. There you have the list. You put this into a list instead of an array. You get these elements into a options year. And now we create a new sidebar, select box with label year and options column options year. Now we save it, and if I change the year, is the chart changing, Viva?
No, not.
How do I make it to change? Because now in the moment that I am filtering the data, it's only in this line and it's fixed to be
Yeah.
2007, right?
Yeah.
What can I do?
We can input the variable year.
That's it. Now, because we are inside of a string and I want to access the year variable that I have created here, I need to place the at symbol. Okay?
Yeah.
Save it back. Now we can ask for the GDP per cap. Let's go for the year 2007 or 92. And there we see that the chart is changing, right? Good. So guys, any questions about this? Streamlits or any other thing about the learning approach whatsoever from Python before going to the energy API?
No, it's okay. It's
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, nothing from mine.
So far so good. We have created this web application with the data sets from the Gapminder. But now we would like to work with the data from the US energy. So I could close these two. Let's create a duplicated project that we will name energy. And we can do. Yeah, we can delete all of this. So there were some pending questions from the last day. Let me address them at the same time we apply the thinking process here. This was I think. Okay, so pending doubts from the last session. Specify the date range within the API and verifying correct values from the US energy generation. If we go to the tutorials from the US energy API, we can see that in this last part of the code, I am specifying the start date as well as the type of data that I want, the values. So I can copy this, place it here. Also, this code. And now the URL base along with the endpoints. that I had here. Okay. So let me take the key from the API that I had it. Okay, so we get the JSON, and now we can avoid this because we are going to make the call from the API. And now let's take all of the daily region sub data, which is the energy capacity, and from the year 2024 at the beginning, the 1st of January. Let me import pandas and place the df here. So to incorporate all of this into the application of Streamlits, we would need to create it from scratch. And the first thing is to wonder which is the option that I am gonna take to place on the drop down here. As you noticed from the last day, that if I make a call to the API, in this case, let's do it with RTO and removing the data. I use the completion here. Headers. There we go. It's taking a bit of time. So now the first thing that we are doing is to get all of the available options from the API, because if you remember in this tutorial, the API has too many data points. You can get the data from the retail sales, RTO, state electricity profiles, etc. So even inside this, you can have subcategories. For example, here, daily region sub bad data. What I want to do is create an application that I can see all of the available options and I can get some simple data sets from that. So to do this, I would first query the API, and then in the JSON, I can see all of the different options. To take all of this, I would save it into a variable, let's say data, and these are the routes that we can take. So I access to the response, then the routes, and then from this, I could leave it like it is, or I could use it into the, I could make some filtering to get all of the unique IDs. But so far, we can leave it as it is. So let's call this the options. And now I will pass these options to the Streamlit application that we can access with all of this code. So we copy, paste it here. And these options will be placed into a button as we used before. So import Streamlit as ST. Then we use the select box, select an RTO. We pass the options, we save it. And now we run from the terminal. So we open integrated terminal, and the same way we did before, Streamlit run scripts.py. Now here we have all of the options because I have it here, so I can delete them, save it back, and rerun them. You see, Ignacio, that we have this information in a dictionary in the dropdown, right? Can you think of a way to select only one property?
With brackets.
It could be, and it's the brackets, but where do we place the brackets? Because I want the information that I have in the Streamlit application is the options, and the options are in a list because we have here the brackets. And then inside each list, each element, we have a dictionary, right? So in the drop-down, I would like to display this information, right? How can I put it?
Using a loop or a list compressive?
In the select box, you have a format function. And in this function, in this parameter, you can create a lambda that each X element is inside the dictionary, each key. Okay? Sorry, each X, each element. The first dictionary, second one, third one, etc. So now if you want to access one of the properties, as you said before, you put the brackets and the property, the name. We save it. And now you can see how we have the information of only the name. Good?
Okay.
Now, we save this into a variable, which is selection. We also place it to the sidebar. And in terms of efficiency, because every time that the Streamlit application you interact with it reloads the website, to get the information from all of the RTOs, you would not call it every time you interact with the application. What you do is to create a data set with all of the options such that you can load it in the application. So these options I set a dataset, but we can actually even create a JSON. So with open data JSON, or let's call it options, F writes JSON. We execute, then we have the JSON with the options, and we load it in the application. To do so, we can now remove this information. Also here, only leave the API key. And now import JSON. Normally the libraries go up. Let's leave it there. And now with open options, there we go. And now we avoid calling the API when and again. Okay, so now, once we have the selection, if I want to see it, selection, I save it, and then I can see how it changes every time that I select a different option. How can I pass this information to call different data from the URL based on the ID? So I need to select only the ID that I have here and append it to the API call that I have here. So I can take all of this, place it here, and then the URL and everything should be taken from here. What shall we do to make the change, Ignacio?
I have no idea.
I went too fast. So you see that inside the RTO, you can get different types of information, right?
Yeah.
Which are the ones that we have in this dropdown. You can get the demands, the generation, etc. So how can we apply the element we get from the selection in the dropdown to the API call so that we can have the information displayed?
Changing the last part of the endpoint.
Exactly. So to do so, we surround it with the brackets, we place an F string, and then here we put the ID from the selection. And I need to interchange the quotes and the double quotes to make it work. And now, further enhancements that we could apply to make this application more efficient is that I don't want to apply all of this and then have the data frame until I have pressed a button. So I would need to create a form, okay? How to do that, Ignacio?
To apply a form.
Yeah, in a Streamlit.
Look for an object that is a form in a Streamlit
Okay.
library.
So Streamlit, dots, and the form, right?
Yeah.
Now, I need to place the form in a way that I pass some key, which can be an arbitrary name. All of the options that I will use in the form need to be inside the form. So we indent the code. And then we need to use the property with, so that any code inside is taken into account. Now, if I would execute this code that is below would still be executed because I haven't told that until I press the button, this code will be executed. To do so, I need to create a button, and then I can see the button here. Still, the submits should be inside the sidebar. So I shall put this st sidebar. And there we go. And now I will say that to execute all of these codes, if the button is pressed. And there we have the Streamlit application to call data from the US Energy API. If I select daily generation, I submit, and it will be selecting the data from starting dates, the one that we have put here in this indicator.
Okay.
Normally it takes a while because the call to the API sometimes is slow. So Ignacio, what do you think of these applications?
Well, it's a different approach because I have been working with Dash and with the callbacks of Dash, so it's more static. Or the basic in Dash is to be static, and if you use the callbacks, you have the dynamic.
Yeah.
And here I see that Streamlit works as dynamic, and then you have to work around, no, to be static if you want to fix something.
That's it. You see, now that you mentioned that you have used Dash, you could also integrate the callbacks from Plotly in this application with Streamlit. They are very good integrated because I know that for the Dash, it takes more time to write the codes. I don't know if you feel that.
Yes. I felt that, but I see that this is a faster application or way to create an app. But I was used to work with Dash and not with Streamlit with a different approach. But it's good to know different ways to do.
Yeah. The problem is that Dash is not, could say, scalable or optimized for a company environment, because you will need to deploy the app into a private computer or instance in the clouds. But to start with a prototype before making an investment on an application, it's perfect, because with very few lines of code, you can easily get a working prototype that can see the design of the more compact application.
Okay.
You, Viva, know what Ignacio is talking about, Dash?
No idea.
So if you go to Dash, Plotly, here you have some tutorials. These are the callbacks that we were talking before. And you see that if I place some data here, it's in the output. If you go with further modifications, all of these codes, they are working with the same data set we used at the beginning, which is the GDP per cap and life expectancy. And then you see that if I click a different year, the data is changing, right? So it's a similar approach to what we have done with Streamlit, but it's from a different library, which is Dash. And the code is a bit more complicated because you need to specify HTML elements that in the case of Streamlit, they are configured by default with Python functions. So, but it's very good to to dig deeper in this library because it's very useful in a work environment. Some companies, they do work with it because it's very reliable.
Okay, okay.
Okay, guys, so to finish, because now we are done today, then following week, I want your collaboration to see what we can do. So in the agenda, I have put here a proposals and sessions, a link to a platform that I have created. I have subscribed to the platform to gather feedback on how to prepare the next tutorials, next sessions, etc. So if you can, guys, propose something for the next session now, that would be very helpful, that you would like to learn about anything related with programming or data, etc. Machine learning, it can be whatever you want. So if you can do that, that would be really helpful.
Okay.
I'll send you the link.
I look for ideas or something that I have been stuck in the past, and I will try to give you feedback.
Great. Let me place it on the LinkedIn. So basically, with this application, what I pretend, I can see some examples, feature-based examples. Go to feature-based. Demo. View demo. There we go. So if you see this application, they have it's prepared so that you give feedback to any product or service, and then on my end, I will design the roadmap with the things that are in review, planned, or next. And based on your feedback, so I will organize the content based on the votes to see which are the topics you would like to learn the most. At the beginning, we are very few, but that's an advantage for you, so that I will create the content that you want. And then we keep building this community to write some code and make the machine program for us so that we can focus on being more creative. On the other hand, because I know some people don't want to make this public, or maybe you want to give some feedback, but it's more constructive criticizing, and you don't want to put it here, I have also made available in this link a space where you can give me some feedback. Also, from your perspective, which are your main difficulties with the code, etc., that I can use to create new materials so that you can be on board with us and learn programming to work for you, not against you. So, as always, be updated with the content we are producing every week. Here, I also let you some services and products that we have, the Academy with the subscription, tutorials, analysis. And also I'm available to do private and training and corporates, also some consulting projects. And if you like our work and you want to support it, please consider doing so here. So guys, it's been a pleasure. If you have any more doubts, let me know through the channels. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Sure.
There you go,
Thank you
guys.
so much. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you next week.